HouseOfPavel. Originally, my idea came to me with the words of Bob Marley, and I'm quoting loosely, "When the power of love overcomes love of power, the world will be a better place." With its converse, when the love of power overcomes the power of love, the world will be a worse place. And I basically wrote my book as a series of poems and essays, because it's not all poetry. There are essays in there as well, each one of which preceded by a tarot card, all of which are from the major arcana. And whether you believe in the occult or not, it certainly has a very interesting history, because, as they say, the first scientists were the last sorcerers. So ignoring the occult with science, I mean, before there was physics, there was metaphysics. Yes. Before there was astronomy, there was astrology. Before there was chemistry, alchemy, and so on. So basically, I have a background in science, but I studied the occult. And part of the topic for the first piece that ended about Marley was, "At the foot of a stone stands a man in the distance, another on mountaintop high up above. Can you tell which is which, and how it will happen? Love of the power versus power of love. Christ versus Antichrist." I also dealt with other bards, songwriters, poets from the 60s, John Lennon, Jim Morrison. And the book is unusual in that it's a giant ecclesiograph. In other words, you can read each chapter there of its own accord. It's self-contained, but as you read the one afterwards, when you read the 2, then 3, then 4, progressively they create a different picture. And because each one is preceded by a tarot card, but they're all from the major arcana, you basically have oracle cards, which are used for self-analysis, versus tarots that can be used for self-analysis, but are used for others. Yes. And as far as the 1% going, people think that, well, if they even know it, they say that 1% of the population has 99% of the money, whether it's 2% has 98%, but the fact is that is one version of it. But there's another really unpleasant side to it, namely for the people on top, that we're people and they're gods, or they're people and we're animals. So, basically that's the other side. And then there's the third aspect, that people believe that the top 1% rule society. Well, that's not entirely true, because yes, there are various levels, but 1 out of 100, the 1% is people. They can have $1 million, but then you have multimillionaires, billionaires, even trillionaires, those who possess the power over the U.S. Federal Reserve, and yes, there are those. And you have tier 2, the 1% of 1%, and then you have the final tier, the 1% of 1% of 1%. And that becomes what? 1 in how many million people? So there are about 7,500 people who rule the world, since the world's population is about 7.25 billion. And they're composed of the money families. I deal with topics like the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Corp, and many others. And there's a subject called, there's a monument called the Georgia Guidestones. And it talks about reducing the world population to 500,000, because the fact is the world is getting more so crowded, and the rate we're growing, we'll have 9 billion people in about 20 years. And things like drugs, crime, poverty, racial tension, religious tensions, they do kill people, but according to the elites, not quickly enough. We're being born faster than we die. So how do you get rid of people? Well, you need to create a series of situations that will kill billions. That's where the apocalypse comes in. And because they know that the world's major religions all have an end-day scenario, whether you have a figure like Armilius, the Antichrist, or Dajjal, they all have that in common. And elements of that scripture are played up by the people on top, and each religion thinks they have a handle on the word of God. But it's not God, it's men playing God, in the name of God over the population. Things that are going all over the world right now, animals acting strangely with a screwed up ecology, earthquakes, because of fracking, floods, supposedly because of reversing of polarities. It gets very touchy. Now, one of the chapters that I have in my book is on Russia, and it's 13 pages, 6,666 words long. That's not a mistake. And the number 6 is an inverted 9, or vice versa, is a mystical number. Anytime you take 9 and you multiply it by another number, the sum of those numbers will always give you 9. 9 times 3, 27, 7 plus 2, 9. 9 times 4, 36, 6 plus 3, 9, and so on. So again, there is a structure to numerology, literature, occult, history, fiction, sociology. And basically I felt that our books, even though very different in style, are intimately connected. And my book asks the question is, what is it that people were looking forward to 100 years ago, 50 years ago? What is it that we have today, and do we have anything to look forward to in the future? And as I say, world gone madness, laughter, is love still divine? Echoes spoken after, let the darkness shine. 13 words, I don't lie, but the truth can be deceptive. Obscurant, iom tenebrae, illuminare, let the darkness shine.